Imagine a dark, hot, and humid forest. The trees are unlike any you're used to know, pines or oaks, but rather gigantic trunks of ferns and horsetails that reach over 30 meters high. The air is heavy, dense, and rich in oxygen, so rich that the very creatures that inhabit this world grow beyond the limits we know today. Now, imagine a shadow slowly descending the trunk. 8 thick legs, each as long as your arm. Eyes glowing in the dim light, stiff hairs covering its body. When it moves, the ground seems to vibrate. This is no ordinary spider. It's a predator with a 3-foot wingspan, capable of hunting anything unlucky enough to cross its path. Welcome to the Carboniferous period, about 300 million years ago, when giant spiders and their arthropod relatives ruled the world. The Carboniferous world. To understand how these creatures reached such size and importance, we must first travel back in time. We are at the end of the Paleozoic era, between 359 and 299 million years ago. The planet was completely different. The continents were joined into vast landmasses covered by immense swamps. High temperatures and constant humidity created endless tropical forests, formed not by flowering or fruiting trees, but by ancient plants such as giant lycophytes, lepidodendron, primitive seed trees, and tree ferns. But the most crucial factor was the atmosphere. The Carboniferous period is famous for its extremely high oxygen levels, somewhere between 30% and 35%, compared to 21% today. This excess oxygen allowed insects and arachnids to breathe much more efficiently, overcoming physiological barriers that limit their growth today. The result: creatures that defy modern imagination. Dragonflies with 70-centimeter wingspans, 2-meter centipedes, and, of course, spiders and scorpions the size of dogs. The first 8-legged lords. When we talk about giant spiders from this era, many immediately think of Megarachne, a legendary fossil found in Argentina. Discovered in 1980, it was initially described as the largest spider that ever existed, measuring about 50 centimeters in length. This announcement made the animal a true paleontological celebrity. Only years later did scientists realize that it was actually a sea scorpion, a eurypterid, a distant relative of spiders. But this doesn't diminish the story in any way, because, yes, the arachnids of that era had immense representatives. Among them were primitive hunting spiders, colossal scorpions, and above all, myriad predators that dominated the understory of these dark swamps. These arthropods weren't just large, they were the apex predators of terrestrial ecosystems. Before the rise of reptiles and long before the dinosaurs, they ruled the forests. The arch of dominion. Carboniferous spiders and scorpions didn't need to compete with mammals or birds. Their world was nearly devoid of large terrestrial vertebrates. There were only a few primitive amphibians and small, fragile reptiles. This meant that giant arthropods could unrivaledly occupy the role of supreme hunter. Scorpions nearly 70 centimeters long roamed the damp soil at night, while their prey, smaller insects or even vertebrates, fell to their death. Some spider species built colossal webs between tree trunks, catching prey the size of modern birds. Others were ambush hunters, lurking like patient killers. Imagine walking through this forest, dense vegetation on either side, high-pitched insect calls echoing, and in every shadow a pair of glowing eyes. Every step could be your last. The secret of gigantism. But how, scientifically, did these animals reach such brutal sizes? Insects and arthropods breathe through trachea tubes that carry oxygen directly to their tissues. Today, this structure is limited by air density. Very large animals wouldn't be able to ventilate enough oxygen to survive. But in the Carboniferous, with extremely high oxygen levels, these physiological barriers were broken. This not only allowed them to grow larger, but also increased their metabolic rate, making them active and voracious hunters. This phenomenon is known as Carboniferous gigantism. And it wasn't just spiders. Dragonflies, cockroaches, and centipedes reached monstrous dimensions compared to their modern counterparts. However, among all these creatures, arachnids possessed something special: powerful evolutionary tools, venomous fangs, webs, agility, a combination that made them true rulers of that world. The shadow of Megarachne. Of all these creatures, Megarachne has become a cultural symbol. Even with subsequent scientific corrections, it still represents the idea of a giant spider in the imagination. Its discovery helped popularize the notion that the past was populated by nightmare-inducing monsters, something that is, in fact, absolutely true. Imagine yourself, a small amphibian, trying to traverse the humid forest, only to be surprised by long legs, a venomous bite, and thick silken threads restraining your movements. The reality of that world was brutal and unforgiving. The eight-legged kingdom in action. At the height of the Carboniferous, forests were hunting grounds. Giant spiders and scorpions controlled the life cycles of countless other animals. With each prey captured, they kept populations under control and shaped entire ecosystems. It's fascinating to think that long before lions and tigers, even before Tyrannosaurus, the true land beasts were these creatures with segmented bodies, rigid exoskeletons, and cold, calculating demeanors. The land was theirs, the beginning of decline. But as in all evolutionary stories, nothing lasts forever. As millions of years passed, the balance of the atmosphere shifted. Oxygen levels began to gradually decline, partly due to climatic changes associated with the end of the Carboniferous period. The drop in oxygen was fatal for the giants. Their enormous bodies could no longer ventilate enough to meet demand. Gradually, the giant lineages disappeared. Furthermore, during this period, the first amniote reptiles began to emerge, animals with desiccation-resistant eggs capable of colonizing drier environments and independent of water. These ancestors of modern reptiles, dinosaurs, and even mammals brought new pressures. More adaptable, with more efficient respiration, they began to take over ecological roles previously held by giant arthropods. And so, the reign of the colossal scorpions and spiders began to crumble. Despite their downfall, their legacy lives on. Modern spiders may no longer reach 3 feet in length, but they still carry the evolutionary tools that ensured their supremacy: complex venoms, the ability to produce silk, and incredibly diverse hunting strategies. They may no longer reign supreme, but they remain effective hunters and vital to ecosystems. Modern scorpions, although smaller, retain the lethal design that their gigantic ancestors already possessed: sharp pincers and venomous stingers. Every time we see a spider build its web or a scorpion lift its stinger, we are, in fact, witnessing echoes of a lost age, a world where they were sovereign and no one dared challenge them. When we think of the prehistoric past, our minds immediately travel to the dinosaurs. They were indeed magnificent giants, but long before them, in a dark and swampy time, the planet already belonged to monsters. Only these weren't reptilian or feathered monsters. They were eight-legged creatures that crept silently through the night, weaving invisible webs and patiently waiting for the opportunity to strike. This was the time when spiders ruled the world, a kingdom forgotten by most, but one that shaped our own evolutionary history. But Earth's history is a succession of crowns and falls. When the giant spiders and scorpions lost their dominance, another monster emerged to take the throne. Creatures that didn't crawl, but walked upright, with razor teeth and insatiable hunger. The next chapter will reveal these new tyrants who rose to redefine the course of life. Because on the stage of evolution, power never remains a noun. Giant spiders may have disappeared millions of years ago, but the memory of their dark reign still lingers in our imaginations. They were the true rulers of a lost world, weaving not just webs but the very fate of life on Earth. Now tell me, would you dare to walk through the Carboniferous forests, knowing that a meter-long spider could be waiting for you? Leave your answer in the comments, because I want to know if you'd be hunter or prey. If this trip to the past captivated you, leave a like. It helps other explorers find this story. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode, where we'll reveal another monster that took the throne when the eight-legged ones fell. Because evolution never leaves the